James, one of the things, as I mentioned before, you talked about was specifically for us to focus on this year, it was House for Duty Vicar. Now, I'm sure most people don't know what that is, so could you tell us?
So I think, stepping back from 2033 and thinking about the short-term implications, really the next two things I shared at the agronomy evening were really, what are the next steps for us this year to begin to move towards that. And so the first thing I shared about was the proposal to recruit a House for Duty Vicar. First off, what is that? A House for Duty Vicar, essentially the title describes exactly what it is. It's essentially a half-time vicar post where they don't get paid, but they get their housing in return for a couple of days' work during the week plus Sundays. And these types of posts tend to have a longer lifespan than a curate role, which tends to be 3 or 4 years. They tend to be about 5 years in length, and they can attract often a couple of different types of people. Firstly, someone who perhaps is coming to the end of their ministry, doesn't quite want to retire completely, but perhaps has been running parishes or running at a pace for most of their ministry and wants something which is not quite full-time and with the pressure. Equally, the types of people who apply for these roles can be people who don't want to work all week for whatever reason. Their spouse may be in full-time employment, or they may have other irons in the fire that they want to pursue and do as well. But I think the attraction of this role, I think for us, is it provides a bit more stability than a curate does. So it gives us extra clergy resources that for a longer period than a short-term period that a curate would. But it's not also going quite the whole hog of trying to bring in another full-time vicar, which I'm not quite sure we're in that place to justify that going that far in terms of the needs of the ministry and the benefits. But I think in essence, why would we do this? I think, and why are we proposing this? I think really to grow and multiply our clergy resources. And I think as we talk about pursuing this vision of the kingdom, there are also stuff in being the parish church that we have to do. So in my role, I'm a governor at 2 of our first schools, which I love. Anyone who wants a funeral or to get married or baptised in our churches, there's a good portion of ministry that needs to take place before we begin to look at the church internally, before we begin to try and move into where God's calling us. And I think I just personally would love us to create some more capacity in order to give ourselves this kingdom vision. We actually need to pursue that also in terms of our parish requirements, and we just need a bit more slack in the rope to do that. And so I think that's really one of the main reasons, is to grow and strengthen our clergy resources by bringing in this. It will enable us to grow a greater diversity in gifting in our clergy. So if we were in a position to recruit this role, I'd be looking for someone who can do some of the things that are important to us, which is being welcoming, being open, being loving around our community. They need to be a smiley person, they need to love people, they need to do all of the stuff that clergy are required to do really well and with God at the centre. But I am looking for someone who has a different gift set to myself, so that actually we can begin to continue to grow a diverse clergy team, at the centre of the ministry here. So there's myself, the Lord has led Ed Quibell amongst us, and we've got a day a week for him. And so I'm looking for someone who can just really complement our gifts at the same time as, sharing our DNA as kind of Chanctonbury churches in terms of the things that are important to us, being smiley, welcoming, spirit-filled, those sorts of things. Now, in terms of the practicalities about what that means, a worst-case scenario is, in order to fund this post, the Archdeacon has advised us that we need to be budgeting on a 20 grand uplift in our finances every year. And in talking to the Bishop, Bishop Richard Jackson, and the Archdeacon about this, I basically said to them, and then in discussing that with our church wardens and PCCs, I don't really want to pursue this unless I know that the churches are behind this and that we are going to be in a good, strong financial position to pursue this. And so practically, in order for us to be in a position to recruit this role, I want to hold a gift day whereby we as church communities can pledge our willingness to raise our finances to the tune of £20,000 a year. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about this on Sunday mornings on the 13th of March, and then we're going to hold a gift day on the 24th of April, whereby we can pledge our response or not, and then we can just see, as we've all kind of prayed about this and looked at our finances, and if there's a willingness that's shown in the pledges that are returned at the end of April, then we will crack on with recruiting that role as soon as we can. And I think, being realistic, I think what that probably looks like once we've got our wagons pointing in the straight line is, at the earliest, I would anticipate us being in a position to bring this person in the autumn, if not probably in the new year 2017.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on that?
No, I think I can say that as wardens and as the PCC, when we met together across the churches in November, we were all very supportive of that. I think people know that it is a big job looking after 3 churches, and we obviously have some experience in the past when we had Julie Sayre as our curate and how well that worked. So I think people will be appreciative of the need, and it's just good to understand the financial cost.
I mean, I think, remembering back to what it was like to have Julie here, I think is a good yardstick on what this looks like. And, she just did a terrific job supporting Chris and just bringing a slightly different emphasis, set of gifts to the ministry. And I think that, some of that, I think, is what we'd be looking to bring in, but for a longer period.
Yeah.
And I think what's exciting from looking at the ministry as a whole is, if we're able to do this, then actually it sets us up really well in terms of building on what God is doing and just strengthening our resources for the future. I think I'm really appreciative. I think people in our churches and our communities are very generous. And very generous by the fact of, I know there's things that we don't do, which we could do, which we'd love to do. But I think, in all honesty, I think if we are to move forward in terms of the development of our vision and calling as churches, I do fear us being stretched a little bit thinly. And I think that puts us in the territory of, I really wouldn't want us to drop a ball in a major way. And so I think this is quite a key next step for us in terms of just putting us in the right position to move forward.
Great.